I just like to start with a smudge. Today, it's our way. I just want to say that we are a verbal society as Indigenous people. And as a verbal society, we follow concepts of oral systems and practices. One of our oral practices to call to order a gathering is the lighting of the smudge and burning of the sweetgrass. And I'll light the smudge now. I just want to say that in our way, the smudge is our official call to order. I'm paralleling it to the gavel in Western gatherings and meetings. And in our creation story, we were given the sweetgrass that we put on a hot coal, and it represents sanctified kindness for all. Animal, plants, and all human beings, the whole universe. So with that, I'll acknowledge Creator for the gift of this call to order and our gathering today. Okay, ayos chipatapio. Ayo napi natus. O kidans kachimadan o kristikoy. Ayos po mo kinanap sa toki. Ako po achimo iskani kamutan. Mstikin chimakakya na kachimo iskani. O kinakuchis po mo kasawani ka. Badaya kumatapak ka na kupiawas chipatapyo. O kikakoksis katupya. Kamutan esta wachimanak si patapyo. Anyay. Ay. Thank you very much.
For United Way to go on this journey of an Indigenous strategy, we want everyone to belong in our community. We want to make sure that we treat each other with caring and kindness so that everyone in Calgary has an opportunity to thrive.
I had meetings with many elders in the urban center in Calgary. During those meetings, the elders showed concern that they needed help. So the United Way offered to bring the elders together. And when the elders came together, it was through that gathering of elders that I knew that I had to help United Way develop the strategy in the right way.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission brought home and brought to light a number of issues and realities for Indigenous people that many of us were probably unaware of. And it also created a moment in time, I think, where people realized that there was a possibility of better understanding and a possibility of working towards reconciliation with Indigenous people. United Way leadership and the board at that point in time decided that we needed to be part of that moment.
By working together with the elders, we were guided to develop Akak'stiman, which means Journey of Creative Planning to achieve goals in Blackfoot.
I would say United Way would be the main organization that was interested in hearing what the elders had to say and a new way of developing Indigenous strategies in the right way. Other organizations that we talked to automatically defaulted back to the Western written default system of policies and frameworks to develop strategies, but that imposed on Indigenous oral systems. However, United Way was ready to listen to the elders and understand what an oral system strategy might look like and work together so that we can achieve the kind of goals they wanted to achieve.
We went back and looked at some statistics.
We found out that 75% of the participants in the programs and services that we support have Indigenous people attending. And we also did further research to determine that 4 out of 10 kids are living in poverty in Calgary. And we also knew that many Indigenous people are not completing high school on time. Now was the time, more than ever, to really roll up our sleeves, work together with the elders, go on a journey together to create ethical space so that everyone in our community has an opportunity to thrive.
How we did it is that we decided that we would go on a new journey through the leadership of elders. So what that took is that United Way had to step back and become learners and put the elders in the position as teachers.
Ethical space recognizes and honors both Western and traditional ways of knowing, being, and doing without imposing on one another. Therefore, these systems need to be paralleled to create that ethical space. Building ethical space requires first acknowledging that there's a Western system and an Indigenous system. For example, when we're in a meeting, we honor both the gavel and the smudge to signal the meeting has begun. Throughout the strategy development process, we've been able to be guided by a commitment to ethical space, which forms the central concept of this strategy.
Everybody talks about relationship building as being important, and yes, it is important, but they might not necessarily see it as part of the work because it doesn't feel tangible. So if you engage on this journey, you really have to be patient, and you'll really get a lot from the elders in return. And part of that relationship then becomes the making of relatives, which is something else that we learned from the elders. And this goes beyond partnership. This is about a real deep caring for each other and a real heart learning in addition to the head learning.
Making relatives is the development of equal and respectful relationships between entire ecosystems and the sharing of our knowledge. Only when we extend our relationships beyond our physical actions and into people's values can we really foster collaboration and authentic partnership.
The biggest thing that could happen from this strategy is that we're making relatives. And so we're really getting to know each other in an authentic way. We're honoring that shared truth. We're honoring that shared history, but we're also sharing a path forward together. So it's really going to affirm our commitment to reconciliation and rebuilding relationships with Indigenous people.
The elders were saying they weren't being able to come together with their traditional knowledge so that they can help organizations. They weren't being allowed to do that because they were working with Western terms. United Way allowed them to and supported them to get together and connect through that oral system. And that's what the elders were grateful for.
So in the Blackfoot tradition, there is a story called Lone Chief that describes how a person might receive a vision for a new way of understanding, thinking, or being. And this is represented by 3 camps. So the existing camp refers to the Western way of thinking and doing things, and which we're all familiar with. The old camp refers to the oral Indigenous system where the knowledge is kept by Indigenous perspectives lives. And the old camp is where we've been. The new camp is the direction, the ideal, and what we want to create and realize in the future. To get to the new camp, we must start where we are in our existing camp, and this is our Western system, and then learn about the old camp, which is the old ways, so we can work together in parallel to move to a new camp. This process is fluid and always changing. Even when we get to a new camp, that camp will become the existing camp. And in time, this process will need to happen to get to a new camp again. We will often need to visit the old camp to help guide and inform our journey to a new camp. The principles of the new camp are formed primarily from an Indigenous-led perspective, but have been paralleled to United Way's value proposition of local experts who bring people together to solve complex issues to improve lives.
So working together in parallel, respecting one another, treating each other with kindness as we go forward is the real opportunity and gem of this strategy.
So the concept of kindness towards everything, or sharing with compassion, guides philanthropic planning and decision-making through the sharing of resources. On a practical level, kindness towards everything is the giving of a resource, including stories to help the collective.
I can tell you now, you're going to hear about how much more this has become than just a little document that United Way is going to use to to help run its organization.
People are already knocking on our door. So we've had United Way Canada approach us about being part of their steering committee. We've had other agencies in town reach out to us. And this morning we're talking about a primary prevention program for youth using an Indigenous way. And everyone is listening to this because it has applications for all of our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And really working with Indigenous people is our first step towards an equitable community.
So the methodology document is an accompaniment to our Indigenous strategy. But really, it's more about how we did the Indigenous strategy as opposed to what is in the Indigenous strategy. So it's meant to be for people who want to go on a similar journey to us. So maybe they want to create their own Indigenous strategy, or maybe they want to learn how to work better with Indigenous people, or maybe they want to serve Indigenous people better in their programs. So we wanted to create something that describes the how of what we did rather than the what.
All over the country, organizations are saying, what's happening? Why are you being so successful to include Indigenous voice? They're wondering if they can have access to United Way strategy. And I'm looking at saying United Way can share the methodology of building the Indigenous strategy. However, each part in the country have their due diligence to work with their Indigenous people to include those values and principles.
There are other Indigenous strategies out there, but there really isn't anything that describes how to do it, because the how is really the most important thing. It's the learning of it rather than the doing of it. And the learning of it takes you on a journey. And so until you do that journey, you won't really know what the what is, so that you could create your own effective Indigenous strategy.
We didn't create this strategy. We were allies to the elders in the Indigenous community in allowing them to create a strategic document and a process that made sense for all of us. So this is about asking them what they need and allowing them the space and the ability to create the systems and the processes that they need for their community, not us telling them what we think they need.
I'm very proud to be able to work with United Way. I'm very proud to support and guide the processes and the learnings that we have. I remember one of the elders when we first started this process that he said for 30 years, all he's seen is cultural awareness being done through different organizations. And he said, this time, for the first time, United Way is an organization that's actually doing something different and unique and valuable and really creating change.
We really believe that once we face the truth, we can go on that reconciliation journey. And so reconciliation is the opportunity for the future. Understanding cultural traditions, understanding Indigenous ways of knowing and being, but working together in parallel, respecting each other, protecting each other is really the opportunity of our way forward.
At the closing, I just want to talk about our process of validation. Our process of validation is we have a formal discussion, and at the end of the formal discussion, we validate everything we talked about. And in this case, I'm validating the launch of the Indigenous strategy for United Way. I'll validate it with the smudge and acknowledging creator in our oral practices. But I'll also, they're gonna sing the song for United Way that was gifted to United Way for the strategy. So with that, I'll make my smudge and acknowledge the ending and the validation of the strategy. Oh, Kishipatapio. Ayo na pinatus. Oh, kitan skachimatan Christikoi. Ayo chikis kanok pinana. ayos po mo samstiki kishiko imachika kimato sawani ko to Akak'stiman kani ko to pato po awak o ka ko po takimiani chitapio kani ko to Akak'stiman wa ayos po mo saus si patapio makita ma oksapa po awak kanya maksika motanya ni ko ta to po awak o kistipatapio ka koksis katopia kamotan lista wachima naksipatapio so nan. Hey, thank you very much.